So there are at least 4 home products sitting finished or at least very close to it on a shelf right now in Cupertino. A new Apple TV 4K, which I feel like I've been talking about for years, alongside a new HomePod Mini, a full-size HomePod, and the long-rumored Smart Home Hub that has picked up 3 different nicknames along the way. But I've just been calling it the Smart Home Hub, and that's what we're sticking to. But all of them have been waiting on the same thing, which is the new version of Siri, Siri AI, which is finally going to be shipping in September with iOS 27. So here is my question, and I want to be upfront, this is just purely my speculation here, but what if Apple is going to do a dedicated smart home event later this year? Let me explain why I think so, because it's not as crazy as it sounds. So let's start with the September problem. There's already an event in September. It happens every single year, but that is mostly for iPhones. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Apple could just do, the home stuff after the iPhone stuff. But what we're expecting this year is the new iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max, plus its first foldable iPhone, the iPhone Ultra, which is arguably Apple's biggest hardware story that they've ever had for the iPhone. You also have the Apple Watch lineup, and so if you put all that together, that keynote seems pretty full. And if you decide to tack on a new Apple TV, 2 HomePods, an entirely new product category with a new operating system all into that same hour or 90 minutes, that's a lot. So I just can't expect that to happen. And so an entirely different event focused just around the home, to me, actually makes a lot of sense rather than it just being wishful thinking. Personally, I would love Apple to just make one mega event and release everything in September, mostly because I want all the new things, but also I'm so sick of talking about the Apple TV, the new HomePod, and this smart home hub. I just want to see them come out. So with that said, let's quickly go through everything that we're expecting for each of those products. So let's start with the smart home hub, the thing people have been calling the command center or the HomePad, depending on which leaker you decide to follow. But based on everything reported so far, this is a roughly 7-inch square display with some thick bezels, all screen on the front, and it comes in 2 different flavors. One that mounts to the wall and another that sits on a speaker base and has been described as looking like the iMac G4. So that hemispherical dome with the display floating on top at an angle, or just like any other one, that I think Amazon makes, or there's like the Meta one. There's a couple of different products that are like this. There's a 1080p camera on the front for FaceTime, built-in speakers, and a rechargeable battery, so you can pick it up and carry it in another room. Kasutami, the prototype collector, has also claimed one of the prototypes has a MagSafe style snap to the wall feature and doorbell integration. But what makes it interesting is that it's not only just the hardware, it's the software. This runs on an OS that Apple internally calls charismatic. And that description is fascinating to me. The interface has been characterized as a cross between watchOS and standby mode on the iPhone, so clock faces and widgets, a software dock for launching apps, and critically, no app store. Apple is apparently preloading a set of apps, so Safari, News, Music, Notes, Calendar, Photos, and Home, and that's what you get. It's a closed product, not a full-on tablet experience where you can go and download any app you want. The part that makes it feel like an Apple product and not just another Echo Show clone is the sensing. Now, apparently, this is going to be more deeper and ecosystem tied, which makes a lot of sense. It can tell how close you're standing to it and change the interface accordingly. So you stand across the room, and it might show you something like the temperature. You walk up to it, and it turns into a thermostat control. It does use Face ID to identify who is standing there and switch to that person's profile, their apps, their home screen, etc. That presence detection can also feed into automation, so lights turn on when you walk into a room. And there was even a report that Apple is considering making Siri appear as an animated version of that little Finder guy icon, which, kind of seems cool, I guess. It's a little off-brand for Apple, but they've been pimping out Lil Finder guy quite a bit. Price is rumored around $350. That would put it well above the Echo Show and the Nest Hub, which is very on-brand for Apple. Then you have the Apple TV 4K, which again, I've been talking about for a while. The current one came out in October of 2022, almost 4 years ago. And the new one is reportedly going to be pretty much exactly the same, minus some internal updates. Same squircle, same black plastic, same size, same design. The upgrade is the chip. Rumors point to the A17 Pro, which is the oldest chip Apple makes that supports Apple Intelligence. The same one in the iPad Mini 7. Compared to the A15 in the current box, that's a pretty big jump. But It's also a chip from 2023, and given how long Apple has sat on this thing, there's an argument that it could be bumped to an A18 or A19 before it actually ships. More RAM would make sense too if Siri is the whole point here. Beyond the chip, expect the N1 networking chip for Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6 plus Thread, so it keeps working as a Thread border router and Matter hub. And there is a rumor of a new Siri remote, though nobody seems to know what would change about it. If you want a tell that Apple is thinking all about this as a one connected story, look at iOS 27 Beta 2, where the Apple TV showed up in the update section of the Home app. You can now update your Apple TV from your iPhone without turning the Apple TV on. HomePods have been able to do that forever because HomePods run a variant of tvOS. Adding the Apple TV to that same list is a small thing, but it kind of suggests that the Home Hub is going to live in that same Home app and update, the same way because it's expected to run tvOS as well. The HomePod Mini is honestly kind of a sadder story. It's now over 2,000 days old, so 5.5 years since a meaningful update. It's still running the S5 chip, which is from an Apple Watch Series 5. The new one is expected to move to the S9 or later, which is a massive jump in raw terms, even though watch chips are pretty low power. No design change is expected, but new colors are, so Apple has reportedly tested out a new red, for example. The N1 chip is a maybe, since Apple has skipped it on some cheaper products, but at minimum, we should get Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, plus a newer ultra-wideband chip for better handoff. And of course, the smarter Siri, which is the entire reason why apparently it hasn't shipped yet. The full-size HomePod is the wild card. Gurman confirmed maybe a few months ago that a new full-size HomePod is coming alongside the Mini and the Apple TV, but there have been essentially zero rumored upgrades for it beyond just getting the new Siri. The current one is from January 2023, so either Apple is planning something that we've not heard about, or there is just going to be a very quiet spec bump to make this more consistent and give it Siri throughout the entire lineup. There is one more thing that could round out a home event, and that is the indoor security camera. Apple has been reportedly working on one that connects to the hub, and it has been penciled in for a late 2026 arrival, potentially. Privacy is the obvious angle here, positioning it against Ring and Nest. If Apple wanted to do full home story on one stage, a camera plus a, smart home hub, speakers, etc. would certainly make this a pretty interesting event. Also, in iOS 27, there were some updates to the Home app with, video recording and using Apple Intelligence to kind of pick through, and it just had a new interface, and that would be something cool to showcase alongside a first-party camera, in my opinion. So those are the products that would make a ton of sense, in my opinion, for a dedicated Apple Home event. Over 50% of those are just spec bumps, let's just be honest. So if Apple did just decide to tack this all on in the September event that's already happening with the iPhones, it could just be hey, here's the new Apple TV, HomePod, and HomePod Mini. They all got the new Siri. That's all you need to know. And we can spend more time on this smart home hub and the camera if that does launch at the same time, alongside the iPhone 18, 18 Pro, and the iPhone Ultra, which would get a lot of the stage time. But would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Do you think Apple will, first off, actually ship any of these things this year? That's the first question. And then, do you think Apple will do a dedicated event maybe in October or early November before Christmas, shopping starts to roll around, and release all of the products then? Let me know in the comments down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.